the VH2's Behind the Music. I'm here with Tyler, the creator from Odd Future, or better known by the title Golfwang, or even better, Wolfgang. Rumor has it that the famous psychologist Wolfgang Kohler inspires your music. Before we get into details about his success has influenced your music, here's some background info about Wolfgang Kohler. Born in Russia in 1887, Kohler was raised in a family that consisted of teachers, nurses, and other scholars. Soon after he was born, his family moved to Germany, where he developed interest in the arts, and especially music. He studied at universities of Tübingen, Bonn, and Berlin. While studying at University of Berlin, he focused on the connections between physics and psychology. It was at the University of Berlin, where he studied with Max Planck and Carl Stumpf. He received his doctorate in 1909 from the University of Berlin. Starting in 1910, Kohler became an assistant at the Psychological Institute at Frankfurt. It was here that Kohler truly became a proponent of the Gestalt movement. Now Tyler, was it Wolfgang Kohler's mentality here that has inspired your music, especially your album Goblin?
Wolfgang Kohler actually is known for his quote about the Gestalt school of psychology by saying that the whole is different from the sum of its parts, meaning that the whole bears no resemblance to the parts creating it. For my music, that just really spoke to me, and that comes out in my lyrics, in which I talk about how different I am from my parents and the experience I've had in my life. But only when I combine all these things together do I truly become who I am.
Now you do know that Wolfgang Kohler isn't only known for being a supporter of the Gestalt movement, but he left Frankfurt to study at the Prussian Academy of Sciences Anthropoid Research Station, where he stayed for 6 years. In this time, he wrote a book called The Mentality of Apes in 1917 that was based on his chimpanzee research. Kohler examined how chimpanzees solved problems in areas such as obtaining food. He suggested that apes do not learn through trial and error learning as taught by Thorndike, but rather the apes have insight into problem solving and an innate ability to problem solve. Now this was a pretty big deal at the time because so many people were attracted to the idea of behaviorism. However, Kohler suggested that insight learning happens with 3 key properties, being that insight learning is based on the animal perceiving a solution to the problem. Insight learning is not dependent on rewards, and third, once a problem has been solved, it's easier to solve a similar problem. This really was a turning point in the psychology of thinking because it suggested higher order thinking in animals. Interestingly enough, while Kohler was in the Canary Islands, he claimed that he could not leave because he was a German. At the time, World War I had begun, and people began to assume that Kohler was a German spy and his research facility was really just a cover for espionage activity. Did this inspire Odd Future at all in the writing of your music and the formation of the group?
Actually, yes. We found it amazing that rumors like this could come about in that time period, even though they've tried to become disproved by his followers and other historians. On the Canary Islands, he is a spy, but he also is this intelligent and influential psychologist. In our music, we want the same identity: off the record, intelligent and creative artists. But on the record, we want to be reckless, but very real artists.
Very interesting. So in 1920, Kohler returned as the intelligent and influential psychologist, as you said, where he replaced Stumpf as the professor and director of the Psychological Institute at the University of Berlin until 1935. While serving this role, Kohler shared authorship on the book Gestalt Psychology in 1929 and had the opportunity to work with other well-known psychologists such as Max Wertheimer, Kurt Lewin, and Karl Duncker. They worked toward establishing the Gestalt school of thought. Let's take a quick look at a video of Kohler's chimpanzee experiment that inspired his move toward Gestalt thinking. As previously mentioned, Kohler moved back to Germany and was there during World War I. Although he was criticized for potentially being a German spy, in 1933, Kohler published an article that openly attacked the Nazi regime. He was not arrested, but did end up immigrating to the United States in 1935, where he became a professor at Swarthmore College. He served on the faculty here for 20 years. In 1956, Kohler became a research professor at Dartmouth, only then to become the president of the American Psychological Association in 1959. While teaching in the United States, he would frequently travel back to Berlin to collaborate in research and keep them up to date on American psychology. Kohler died at the age of 80 in New Hampshire. Now, Tyler, you've said that Kohler inspired your music with his supposed identity as a German spy, and his thoughts on the whole being different from its parts. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers about how you were inspired by Wolfgang Kohler?
Actually, our future was inspired by Wolfgang Kohler's ability to stand up against the Nazis. People who typically did that were executed or arrested, so that's a bold move coming from a man who had so much potential to change psychology and eventually did. Had it not been for this act, American psychology would not have been as heavily impacted as it was by the Gestalt movement and shift from behaviorism. My music also would not have been the same. When I'm writing, I want to have that same attitude that Kohler had when he was writing against the Nazis.
Yeah, definitely. That's a brave mentality to have.
Thank you.
One last juicy note about Wolfgang Kohler before we have to go. Rumor has it that he divorced his wife in the mid-1920s only to marry a young, wealthy Swedish student, therefore cutting off all of his contact with his past wife and 4 children. His new wife was interviewed a while later, stating that Kohler disliked being married because it imposed on his freedom and he didn't like having a family. Soon after this interview, Kohler developed a tremor in his hands that worsened when he was in a bad mood. His research students actually used this tremor to gauge his mood. Yikes. Well, It looks like we're all out of time. Thank you, Tyler, for your time and for helping us shed light on your inspiration for your intense but creative music and where the infamous title Wolfgang Wolfgang stems from. Until next time.